Hey everybody, Heather here. So today we're going to be coloring our October 2013 monthly Copic coloring card kit. And this month I have picked this cute image by CC Designs called All Wrapped Up. If you want to see if this kit is still available, if you're watching it later on, head over to the store and I'll put a link down in the description bar. And just type in All Wrapped Up in the search bar, and if it's still available it will pop up. If not, check out some of the other kits while you're there. So I've already stamped my cute image on some Neenah 80-pound solar white cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. So let's color. So I'm going to start out by outlining my image with C0, and I'm just going to go all the way around the outside. So I'm just going to go and start right down here at his foot. And take my C0 and just work my way around. This way too, if I get some on my image, I can erase it before I get started coloring. Go up here. Go around his cute little ear there sticking out. My pen's getting a little dry, so I'm going to have to fill it up after this. So it'll be all ready for next time. And I'm going to go back around over here and connect to the end. And then, of course, we want to do the dog too. So let's go over here and go around our tissue. And go all the way around him. Or her, whichever you would like. Up here. And all the way around to the other side. And this will just give him a little bit of dimension and make him look like he's popping up off of the, get in between the toilet paper there. It's got a little background showing through. And just make it look like it's not quite so flat on the page. Go up here, around his cute little foot. And back over here to connect to where I started. So next, let's go and do his skin. And for that, I'm going to use E21, E00, and E000. And I'm going to start right here on his little arm and his hand. So I'm going to start with E21. Then I'm going to give just a little bit of the E21 a brush on each of his sides of his arm. And his cute little fingers down here. I'm going to give them a little bit. And let's brush a little bit over here. And then I'm going to grab E00. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill in this bottom section. And let's go ahead and brush. And I try to touch down on top of the last color I put down and pull it in towards the middle. That way I'll use, soften that little line there. And then I'm going to grab E000 and fill that in. I'm just going to brush all the way across. And then I'm going to grab E21 again. We're going to go do the other arm. And he's got a little bit showing here in between the tissue. Let's give that a little brush. I'll leave just a little tiny dab there for my E00. And then, of course, we're going to go up here and we're going to do his hand. So let's get right next to the tissue. And then let's give each of his little fingers a little dab right that. Then I'm going to grab E00. We're going to fill in this little bitty dab I left there. And then up here, we're going to brush just a little bit. Just soften that line. And I left a little bit of white there, so I'm going to grab my E000, and we're just going to color right over the top. Give that a nice little shadow there. Okay, and then we're going to go to his face, and for that I'm going to again grab my E21, and I'm going to actually just give his ear just a little bit right here, because it's poking out. And then I want to go all the way around his face. So I'm going to start up here by his hairline, and I'm just going to work my way around his little face. I'm being careful to just use the tip of my pen. And I want to get up here next to his hairline and his little toilet paper wrapper. And then for his nose, I'm going to go ahead, and he's got a little line right here for me already. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. And then he's got a little cleft right here in his lip. I'm going to give that a little dab. Okay, that looks pretty good so far. Then I'm going to grab E00, and I'm going to fill in his ear because there's not much left. And I'm going to turn my boy here a little bit so I can brush a little bit better, because I try to hold my pen kind of angle here on the side. And then I'm going to touch down on my E21, and we're going to pull that color into the middle. And we're going to do the same for this side. Brush right over that line and flick right in towards the center. There's still a little bit of that line showing, so I'm going to go back and brush it again, and then just make my line a little bit bigger. Then of course I want to get his nose over here. Then I'm going to grab my E000, and we're going to fill the rest of that in. And I'm not too concerned about getting any on his eye, because later we're going to color that in with some black. Alright, that looks pretty good for first coat. And so now I want to add some cheek colors, so I'm going to grab R20 and R30, and I'm going to start with my R20, and I'm going to give him a little rosy cheek. So let's just give him a little circle right here, and over here let's give him a little circle like this. Then I'm going to grab my R30, and I'm going to go ahead and set my pen down on top of my R20, and I'm just going to make my circle a little bit wider. That will soften the edges. And then I'm going to take my E000, and I just want to flick right over the top of that and soften it just a little bit, because I'm liking how the shading on the rest of his face looks. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my E21 again, because I want to re-put this line for his nose back in. So I'm just going to go up here and just very lightly add a little dab of that, just so he's got a little bit of shadow right there. So next, let's go and work on his hair. So for his hair, we're going to use E35, E33, and E30, and I'm going to start with my E35, and I'm going to add a little bit of shadows in here. So let's go ahead and start right over here on this side, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a shadow right next to his head, and underneath this little piece of bang right here. And then for each of these little parts that are sticking out, I'm just going to give it just a little bit, and I'm just barely using the tip of my pen, so I got a little bit of color there. And then up here, we're going to add a little bit along that tissue paper, and then I'm going to give each one of his little bang things just a little bit on the side. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to go right along that tissue paper, and then this side, and then give each of these little bangs just a little dab. And we'll go over here and get this one. Had a little bit of shadows in there. And then up here he's got hair poking out in between his bandages there. So I'm going to go ahead again. I want to do a little bit of a line right next to the tissue paper. Like that. And then this little piece is kind of falling onto his hair, so that's going to cast a shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a little dab. And then I'm going to add a little bit to each one of these little bottom sections, like that. And then this one here, we're going to get it right next to the bandage in this little pokey part. Same thing for up here at the top. I'm going to go right next to the bandage. And then I want to do each one of these little pieces of hair that are poking up. Okay, and then this side, I want to switch to my shadow being on the opposite end, so it's falling down. Okay, now I'm going to grab my E33, and I want to soften my line, so I'm going to go over here and start over here. I'm going to touch down on top of my E35 I already laid down, and just widen that line just a little bit. I still want to leave a little bit of white there for my lightest color. And we're just going to work our way all the way around. Just widen that line out just a little bit. Over here, I think I'll bring this in, and over here I'm going to add this one right around his finger a little bit. I think that looks pretty. I think I'll even fill in this little section right here. And we'll get right here. And get right up here next to his head, top of his head. Okay, and then I'm going to grab E30 to fill it in. So let's go right over, start over here. I'm going to brush right over the top. Whoops, I forgot down here. Each of these little sections. Brush over that a couple of times so I can soften that line a little bit more. And work our way up here to the top. And again, I'm going to go over it a couple times because the jump from E33 to E30 is pretty dark. So by going over it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, you're going to soften that line up even more. I'll go down here and get this section just a little bit more. So next, let's go work on his shirt, and for that we're going to start with YG03 and YG01. So I'm going to grab YG03 first, and I did alternate stripes, so you can pick whatever stripe you would like. I'm going to go ahead and start with this middle section of his little sleeve right here. So I'm going to take my YG03 and just dab a little bit on there, and then right here he's got a little bit of that line showing, so I'm going to just fill that in. And then he's got, I'm going to use this stripe, so I'm going to fill that little stripe in. But again, it comes down underneath here, so we want to get this section. Then I'm going to skip one, and I'm going to add a little bit to the next stripe, skip one, add a little bit to the next section. And again, up here, he's got a couple of little stripes showing, so I'm going to leave this one for orange, and I'm going to paint this one green. And then because I did the middle stripe over here, I'm going to do the middle stripe of his shirt right here. And then I'm going to grab YG01 next to fill it in. So again, I lay down on top of my YG03 and flick in towards my white. And some of them is there's a pretty small area. It's not a huge area to fill in. Like that. Okay, but while I have these colors out, I also did some candy in the bag with just the colors I'd already used. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a couple of little candies. That was YG03. And then I'm just going to color over the top with YG01. Like that. That way it'll do a couple of candies while we got these colors out. And next, for the second stripes, I'm going to use YR14 and YR12. So I'm going to start with my YR14. And we're going to get just a little bit of this little dot. And we're going to do this one. And here's a little bit of that stripe showing there. And just work our way along the shirt like that. Next, I'm going to fill in those stripes with my YR12. So again, touch down on top of the 14. And these are so small you shouldn't have a problem with that. Down here I'll brush on my 14 and then fill in the rest of that little stripe. And add a little bit right there. Okay. And then I also use these colors to color the little candy bag. So I'm going to grab my YR14 again. Go up here and add a couple of little shadows on my bag. Let's go right next to his hand. that. Maybe here's a little crease, so let's add some down there. Let's add a little bit right here. And then let's do YR12 to fill it in. Careful not to color my candies. So next, let's go do his pants, and for that we're going to use BG93 and BG91, and I'm going to start with my BG93, and let's add some shadows in here. So I'm going to go over here where his pants are showing, and I'm going to go ahead and fill in the back section on the other side of this little stripe, and then just so the stripe stands out, I'm going to do a little bit on this side, and let's do a little bit right next to the tissues. So we got a little triangle of white in there. Then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do his cuff of his pants. So let's get the cuff, and I'm going to do a little bit of a cuff on this side. And then over here he's got a little bit of cuff showing, so I'm going to do that one and this side. And then I'm going to leave some for little tissues, but this I'm going to say is pants. And then let's go ahead and get over here just a tad. Okay, and then I'm going to fill all the rest in with my BG91. Very lightly, there's just a little bit of space left there. Over here I'm going to color this whole stripe. And we'll fill in this little section down here. I didn't get quite close enough to my tissue right there. But that's all there is to it, to his pants. I also want to do one of my candies, so let's go ahead and grab the B93, and let's do this middle one here. And we'll fill it in with our B91. That covers one more of our little candies in the bag. Next, let's work on his shoes, and for that we're going to use E47, 44, 43, and 41. I'm going to start with E47, and I'm going to use that down here on his sole to add a little bit of shadows right next to his pants, and then to make it look like it curves around here in this section where it goes out of this shoe, and over here. Then I'm going to grab E44 next. We're going to brush right on top of our 47. And let's go ahead and brush this side. I want to leave a little bit of white there from my 43, so we're just going to go, I think I'll pull this one a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to use my 44-2 up here on the top, so I want to add a little bit up there and come down that crease like that, and maybe add a little bit along the sole. Add a little bit up here on the top of this part of his shoe. Okay, and then I'm going to grab E43, and we're going to fill in the sole. Like that. And then I'm going to fill in this little section of the back of his shoe. And same for this side. And then I'm going to leave a little bit of white on the tops of the shoes there for my E41. And brush over that a couple times, kind of swirl it around. Next, let's jump over here and do our little dog. And for that, we're going to start with C4, 2, and C0. So I'm going to grab my C4 first. And let's add some shadows down here on his little foot. Just adding a little bit. And I'm just barely touching down on the paper with the tip, very tip of my pen. Okay, and we'll get his tail. And we'll get a little bit in here. Let's do where this tissue's touching this foot. And here's a little crease in his leg, so let's get that. And this leg. And then for his neck, I think I'll do just a little bit like that. And then his tissue up here is going to touch his, cast a shadow, so I'm going to do a little bit on there. And this pen I don't use very much, so it's really wet. So I'm trying to be very careful to see how much ink it's putting down. And let's get the back side of this one, and then this ear. Add a little bit of shadow like that. And then he's got his little mouth right here. Let's go ahead and add a little dab like that. That looks pretty good. Okay, then I'm going to grab C2, and I'm going to go ahead and fill in these cute little feet because there's not much left. And same for this little section here where the tissue's not touching him. And this little bitty space for his neck or his body. And let's go ahead and do, I'm going to leave a little bit of white on this foot. He's got that one's a little bit wider. And this one, let's brush down on top of that. And then let's add, well, I think I'll do up here by this tissue too. But I'll leave a little bit of white on his leg for my lightest color. Get his tail. Let's leave the top of that tail white. And I'm going to fill in the underneath of his chin here. And let's leave a little bit of white on his face. And some white on his ear. And then we'll get his little snout here. I think I'll fill that all the way in. He just looks so happy there. Okay, then I'm going to grab C0 and we're going to fill in the rest of our white spaces. So let's start up here on his ear and fill the rest of that ear in. The rest of this ear. Face. Tail, and his little leg. I'm going to grab C2 again, and I'm going to do just a little bit. He's got this little spot on his chest. I'm going to give that a little dab, and then I'm going to fill it in with my C0. And then his nose. His nose, let's use C8, C6, and C4. So I'm going to grab my C8, and I'm just going to very lightly give it a little dab of C8 right there at the bottom. Then I'm going to do C6. And I'll bring that up a little bit further. And then C4 to fill it in. And for his tongue, I'm going to use R20 and R30. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my R20. And I'm going to give it a little bit back here in the back. And then I'm going to extend that line in the middle of his tongue down a little bit. And I also want to finish up my candies in my bag. So I'm going to brush these two little candies. And then I'm going to take R30. We're going to fill those candies in. And we're going to fill his tongue in. So that leaves us with the toilet paper, and for that I'm going to use E81 and W0. So I'm going to start with E81, and I'm going to actually start up here on the top of the paper up here on his head. So I'm going to take E81 and I'm going to fill in these little sections of the toilet paper that you can see the back. And, like go down here. And get all those where you can see the back section. This dog right here. There's a back. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's go back up here to his head. Let's zoom out there a little bit. Okay, so I want the paper to still have a little bit of white left. So I'm going to take my E81. And I'm going to brush on the edges, but I'm going to bring my little edge in so there's a little bit of a crease in the middle there. Same for this one. I'm going to bring that in so I've got a little bit of a line for my crease. And this one, I'm going to bring my crease in like this. And then I also want to do the opposite side. So we're going to go right along the edge. I'm going to give it a little bit more in the middle. And then we'll work our way down here along his arm. Turn it a little bit so I can I just want to add some shadows in there, make it look like it's got some definition. And let's go ahead and just work my way clear down. You can add as little or as much as you would like. Work our way down to the bottom down here where we got this cute little bow. Okay, and I'm going to go do our dog. And then some of this tissue kind of bends down, so where it bent down, I tried to put a little bit of a shadow in there. Like this one looks like it folds over the top. So I just tried to give it a little bit of a shadow where I thought that it was bending. And we'll do this side. And we also want to do this roll. Let's give that a little brush. And then I kind of give it a little bit right here in the middle. Looks like it's wrapping over a little bit. Okay, so after I put my little shadows in, I went with my W0 and I just brushed over the edge. I still didn't go all the way across because I still wanted to have a little bit of white. I just wanted to soften up the edges of my last color just a little bit. I tried not to make it too complicated. It's just toilet paper. I just wanted it to have a little bit of color on it. And the E8 one seemed like the perfect color for a little boy who'd been playing around with the tissue. Probably got a little bit of dirty fingerprints on it. And work our way up here. But the W0 you can't see very much. It's a fairly light color, so it just softens the edge of all that last color you put down. Okay, and then for his eyes, I took my 100 pen, or if you have a different black marker, that would be fine too. And I just colored his pupils in like that. And then I took my Sharpie white paint pen and I shake it up with the lid on. And then I just gave each of his eyes a little dot so he could have some pupils in there. Alright, so here's our cute little all wrapped up guy, all finished colored. So I've got my tie stuff here, so let's put our card together. And I don't have any ribbon going on, so I don't have to worry about tucking anything behind. So let's just start with this black piece. Put some glue on here. And stick this down onto our base. And then next comes the green piece. And this you can, I'm not going to do it this time, but I distressed the edges with some black soot Ranger Distress ink. I kind of grunged them up. To save a little bit of time, we will just forgo that this time. And then next was the orange piece. And again, I distressed the edges with my black soot distress ink. Okay, and make sure your card opens the way you want it to open, and mine's perfect. And then I kind of have it coming off of the black mat. Like that. And then next was a little blue piece. Just don't want to lose my bats, but I put those over here. Okay, so a little blue piece. And I didn't actually put any distress ink. Hi, Dikia. She's come to see who I'm talking to. Any distress black soot ink on this one, I just left it. But you could also distress this one. And then I have this one kind of cattywampus on to the side. And again, it's coming off over here onto the black. Then next we did these two little strips. Okay, and then these are kind of on the side, so let's do, but I don't want them to be, so they go into the envelope, so I'm going to watch where I put these. But again, they do go back off over here onto the black. That's that one, and then this one goes this way. And let's do like that. Looks pretty good. And then I'm going to attach my colored image to my black mat. And I used the corner chopper to do the rounded edges. Okay, and then I put some glue dots on the back of this before I started the video so that I wouldn't have to try picking them off the thing. All I have to do is remove the adhesive sticky stuff here. Throw that over there. And then this is right on here. Oh, better straighten my card out, make sure I don't have them on there crooked. Right there looks pretty good. And then in your kit you got some of these little blue rhinestones, so I'm going to put some of those on there, and you can pick whatever size you want. And I think I'll go with the bigger one. I'm going to put a bigger one up here. Then I think I'll maybe go the next size down for the next one. And then I'm going to put some over here in the corner. So again, I'm going to grab a little one. Or a bigger one, sorry, the biggest one. And then the next size down. Let me turn it a little bit here so I can make sure I'm getting it straight. Like that. And then you have all these bats. So I'm going to go ahead and put those up here. And you're just going to attach those with some liquid glue of some sort. And let's put one right here. And then I left your little colored image sheet blank. There's room here for you to put a sentiment, and for my sentiments that I used the new CC Designs Wishful Thinking sentiment sets, and that's available in the store, but I did not include it in the kit, and I did not stamp your piece. So you can, actually too, you could run it through, if you have a cute little saying you wanted to, you could run it through the printer first and print it on there, and then stamp your image. Depends on how you want to work that. I'm just going to leave a little bit of space up there so that if I so desire, I can stamp something on there a little bit later. And let's put him right here, like that. And then after they dry, I will pop their wings up a little bit more. But I left it blank. And on the original card, see, I stamped your Spooktacular up here in the corner. So there's plenty of room for you to put your little saying up there. So I hope you had fun coloring with me today, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.